The letter arrived on a Tuesday. No return address. Inside, heavy cardstock invited me to a meeting regarding an inheritance from someone named Erth Voss. The name meant nothing to me. I almost tossed it, assuming it was a pitch for life insurance or cemetery plots. But something made me call the number. "Mr. Parker, thank you for your call." A woman introduced herself as Ms. Hale, representative of Thornfield Trust Services. "You're the third to confirm. We expect all 5 beneficiaries to attend Friday's meeting." 5 beneficiaries? Yes. You'll learn everything then. She wouldn't elaborate, and something in her tone stopped me from pressing. Friday found me in a glass-walled conference room 27 floors above the city. The Chicago skyline spread out before us, immense and indifferent. Darren arrived right after me wearing an expensive suit. He had the same easy confidence he'd always had. "Alex," he said, gripping my hand firmly. "Been too long." Then came Natalie, whom I hadn't seen since her father's funeral 3 years ago. She'd cut her hair short, but her eyes still held that penetrating quality that made you feel transparent. Will slipped in quietly, acknowledging us with a nod. He looked older than 42, shoulders slightly stooped as if carrying an invisible weight. Last was Sophie, 15 minutes late, apologizing profusely as she always had back in college. The 5 of us, together again after nearly 2 decades. Ms. Hale entered precisely at 2 o'clock, slim folder in hand. "Thank you all for coming. I represent the Thornfield Trust, executors of a fund established by Erth Voss." "I still don't understand," Sophie said. "None of us know an Erth Voss." Ms. Hale's expression revealed nothing. "The trust was established 3 years ago. Ms. Voss specified the 5 of you as equal beneficiaries." She opened the folder and passed each of us a document. "The total value is approximately $2 million. The room fell silent. $2 million, divided 5 ways. Not a fortune, but not insignificant. "There are conditions," Ms. Hale continued. "The trust will release funds quarterly, but only when all 5 beneficiaries unanimously agree on their use." Will frowned. "Unanimously? That's unusual." "Indeed. The first distribution is set at $50,000. You have 30 days to reach an agreement. If you fail to agree, the funds roll over to the next quarter." "What if we never agree?" Darren asked. "If no distributions occur over 2 years, the trust dissolves, and all remaining funds transfer to charity." We exchanged glances. 20 years had changed us, careers built, marriages formed and dissolved, children raised, but something familiar lingered beneath the surface. A shorthand in our expressions that time hadn't erased. "Ms. Voss left this to be read to you." Ms. Hale opened a sealed envelope. "Remember the cabin. Remember the promise. The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable." A chill ran through me. The cabin. No one had mentioned it in years, but we'd all been there. "That's it?" Natalie's voice had a slight tremor. "That's all," Ms. Hale confirmed. "I'll leave you to discuss the first distribution. When you've reached an agreement, call the number on your documents." After she left, silence stretched between us. "Well, this is weird," Sophie finally said. "Does anyone actually know this Erth Voss?" I asked. Foreheads shook no. "The cabin," Will murmured. "Has to be Lakeshore, right? We'd spent 3 summers there during college, 5 friends in a borrowed family cabin on Lake Michigan. Our last visit had been in 2006. "Could be coincidence," Darren said, though his expression suggested he didn't believe it. $2 million isn't coincidence," Natalie replied. "Neither is choosing the 5 of us. I studied them, these people I once knew better than myself. Maybe we should focus on the distribution first. Figure out the mystery later." The discussion began cordially. Sophie suggested dividing each distribution evenly. "Simple, fair. but a mess. Hale had been clear, the funds had to be used for a specific, agreed-upon purpose. Will suggested investing it collectively. Darren countered with donating to charity. Natalie thought we should fund something creative. I said little, watching them fall into familiar patterns. Darren dominant, Will analytical, Sophie conciliatory, Natalie challenging. The dynamics we'd established in college reasserting themselves. As the conversation circled, I found myself thinking about Erth Voss, a name that stirred nothing in my memory yet someone who clearly knew us. Knew about the cabin. 2 hours passed without consensus. Finally, Darren checked his watch. I need to go. Let's continue this over email. I have an idea, I said suddenly. What if we use the first distribution to go back to the cabin? Rent it for a week, all of us together. 4 pairs of eyes turned to me. Why would we do that? Will asked quietly. Because someone wants us to remember something that happened there, I replied. Maybe we should. Natalie's eyes narrowed. Remember what, exactly? I met her gaze. That's what we'd find out. I can't just take a week off, Darren objected. It doesn't have to be a whole week. A long weekend. Enough time to figure out who Erth Voss is and why she left us this money. Sophie bit her lip. I'm actually curious about that too. Slowly, reluctantly, they agreed. Even Darren, though he negotiated it down to a 3-day weekend. We'd use the first distribution to rent the cabin, cover travel expenses, and whatever remained would go to a natural conservation fund for the lakeshore. When I called Ms. Hale the next day with our decision, she didn't sound surprised. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered. 2 stories of weathered cedar nestled among pine trees, 100 yards from the shoreline. The furniture inside was different and the cabin had been renovated in the intervening years, but the layout was the same. Large living room with stone fireplace. Kitchen with outdated appliances. 4 bedrooms upstairs. We arrived separately. I got there first, having taken Thursday off to drive up from Chicago. The key was under the mat, just as the rental agency had promised. Sophie arrived next, then Will. Natalie and Darren came together after sharing a ride from the airport. By sunset, we were all assembled, 5 middle-aged strangers who used to be inseparable. Dinner was takeout from the little town 10 miles away. We ate around the dining table, conversation stilted, punctuated by long silences. Nobody mentioned Erth Voss or the trust until we'd finished eating. I did some digging, Will said finally. Erth Voss died 3 years ago at age 42. Breast cancer. Originally from Milwaukee. Worked in nonprofit administration. Any connection to any of us? Natalie asked. Will shook his head. Nothing obvious. No social media links, no employment overlap I could find. What about the cabin? I asked. Any connection there? The property records show it belonged to the Miller family until 2010. That tracks, Darren said. It was Ben Miller's family cabin. Ben Miller. A name from the past. None of us had stayed in touch with him after college graduation. I tried finding Ben online, Will continued. He's not on any social media. Last public record has him living in Seattle as of 2015. So no obvious connection to Erth Voss, Sophie concluded. We lapsed into silence. Maybe we should talk about the last time we were here, I suggested. The tension in the room thickened. What's there to discuss? Darren's voice had an edge. We had a good time, then we graduated and moved on. Did we? I pressed. Because someone named Erth Voss seems to think something significant happened here. It was almost 20 years ago, Alex, Sophie said softly. I barely remember the details. But I could see in her eyes that she was lying. The last night, Natalie said suddenly. That's what this is about. It has to be. Will stared into his wine glass. We agreed not to talk about that. Well, someone's forcing us to talk about it now, I replied. $2 million worth of forcing. Darren pushed back from the table. I need a stronger drink for this. While he rummaged in the kitchen, I studied the others. Will avoiding eye contact. Sophie fidgeting with her napkin. Natalie watching me with something like resignation. When Darren returned with a bottle of whiskey and 5 glasses, I decided to break the dam. Iris Langley, I said. The name dropped into the silence like a stone. Jesus, Alex, Will muttered. That's what this is about, I continued. It has to be. Iris Langley had been at the cabin that last weekend. A friend of Sophie's, quiet and artistic, with a crush on Darren that was obvious to everyone except, apparently, Darren himself. Iris moved to Australia, Sophie said. I got a Christmas card from her years ago. Did she? I asked. Because I tried to find her after that night. Nobody seemed to know where she went. She moved overseas. She wanted a fresh start. Convenient, Natalie murmured. What's that supposed to mean? Sophie's voice rose slightly. Nothing. Just that it's convenient how she disappeared, and none of us ever had to deal with what happened. Darren poured himself another whiskey. Nothing happened. She got upset, she left early. End of story. That's not how I remember it, I said. Then how do you remember it, Alex? Darren's eyes locked with mine, challenging. How did I remember it? Fragments, mostly. Music playing. Empty bottles accumulating. Iris showing Darren her sketchbook with drawings of the lake, the trees, a few of him that made it clear she'd been studying him when he wasn't looking. Then the game. Truth or dare, but with higher stakes as the night progressed. Will daring Iris to jump into the lake naked, her refusing. The mockery that followed. I remember us pushing her too far, I said finally. I remember her crying. I remember none of us stopping it when it got cruel. She was too sensitive, Darren dismissed. We were just having fun. Were we? Because I also remember her screaming at us before she left. Saying she'd make us sorry. The room went quiet. You think Iris is Erth Voss? Will asked finally. It fits, doesn't it? She'd have been about the right age. And this trust, forcing us to unanimously agree on things, making us confront the past. That's insane, Darren scoffed. Change her name, wait 20 years, then set up an elaborate trust just to what? Make us feel bad about a stupid college party. Maybe it's not about making us feel bad, Natalie said. Maybe it's about making us face what we did. Who we were. Who we are. Sophie had gone pale. I need some air, she said, standing abruptly and walking out onto the deck. I followed her. Outside, the air was cool and smelled of pine and lake water. Sophie leaned against the railing, looking out at the dark water. You know something, I said quietly, standing beside her. She didn't look at me. We all know something, Alex. We were all there. But you stayed in touch with Iris, didn't you? The Christmas card. A long pause. It wasn't from Australia. Where was it from? Milwaukee. Her voice was barely audible over the sound of small waves lapping at the shore. Did you know she was sick? Sophie nodded, still not meeting my eyes. I found out later. We weren't close anymore, but we had mutual friends. When I heard she was diagnosed, I sent a card. She never responded. And you never connected Erth Voss to her? I didn't know she changed her name. Sophie finally turned to me. But it makes sense now. Erth was her middle name. Voss was her mother's maiden name. We stood in silence for a moment. What really happened that night, Sophie? After Iris left. Her eyes welled with tears. You really don't remember? I remember her leaving. I remember us continuing the party like nothing happened. She didn't just leave, Alex. She took Ben's car. She had been drinking and she was upset, probably shouldn't have been driving. A cold feeling spread through my chest. There was an accident. Sophie nodded. About a mile from here. She hit a tree. Broke her arm, got a concussion. Why didn't anyone tell me? You fell asleep. The rest of us promised not to talk about it. Darren was worried about getting in trouble for the drinking. Will didn't want it on his record while applying to law schools. I was ashamed for bringing her in the first place. And Natalie? Natalie is the one who found her. Drove her to the hospital. Made her promise not to mention we were all drunk. The pieces were falling into place. And we never spoke to her again. Darren and Will never did. Natalie checked on her a few times. I tried to stay friends, but we drifted apart. She dropped out of the art program. Changed majors. I don't know what happened after that. Until the Christmas card. Until the Christmas card. I wondered what it had cost Iris to reach out to Sophie years later. What mix of loneliness and forgiveness had prompted it? We should tell the others, I said. Sophie nodded reluctantly. They won't want to hear it. They don't have a choice. None of us do. That's the point of all this. The next morning we sat around the living room in uncomfortable silence, the revelation of Erth's identity hanging between us. Darren was skeptical, Will contemplative. Natalie had grown increasingly quiet, occasionally checking her phone as if waiting for something. So what now? Sophie finally asked. We know who Erth Voss is. We remember what happened. Is that enough? For what? Will asked. For whatever this is, I gestured vaguely. This trust, this reunion. What's the purpose? Money, Darren said flatly. The purpose is she's giving us money. No, Natalie spoke. The purpose is making us earn it. Together. By doing what? Will asked. By deciding what to do with it. By having to face each other and agree. I nodded slowly. She designed it so we'd have to confront what happened. So we'd have to look at each other and decide if we're still the same people who left her alone that night. But we're not, Sophie protested. We were kids then. Were we? Natalie's voice was sharp. I was 22 when I found her bleeding in that car. Old enough to know better. Old enough to do better. The room fell silent. I have something to show you all, Natalie said. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then handed it to me. It was an email from Ms. Hale, sent that morning. Ms. Reynolds, the second distribution parameter has been received. If all beneficiaries agree to the terms during this weekend's meeting, the next distribution will proceed as scheduled on July 1st. Thornfield Trust Services. What is this? I asked, passing the phone to Sophie. I've been in contact with Ms. Hale, Natalie admitted. I asked her if the second distribution had different terms. It does. It's larger. $100,000, and it can only be used for one thing, establishing a scholarship in Erth Voss's name at our alma mater. For art students. Art students, Darren repeated. Like Iris was. So this is all some guilt trip. His voice hardened. Make us feel bad about something that happened 20 years ago, then force us to fund her pet cause. Is that really how you see this? I asked, incredulous. How else should I see it? She's manipulating us from beyond the grave. She's offering us a chance to make amends, Sophie countered. For what? Being mean at a party? Come on. For abandoning her, Natalie said firmly. For covering up what happened. For letting her deal with the consequences alone while we all went on with our lives. Darren stood up, pacing. This is ridiculous. If she wanted an apology, she could have asked for one while she was alive. Maybe she did, I said quietly. In her own way. The Christmas card to Sophie. Maybe that was an opening, and none of us walked through it. A heavy silence followed. How many distributions are there? Will asked finally. 4, Natalie answered. I don't know what the third and fourth ones require. Ms. Hale would only confirm the second. So what happens now? Sophie asked. We decide, I said. Do we continue with this? Accept the terms of her trust? We already accepted by coming here, Will pointed out. The question is whether we follow through. We spent the day in that cabin talking more honestly than we had in 20 years. About that weekend. About Iris. About the people we'd been and the people we'd become. By evening, something had shifted between us. Not forgiveness, exactly. Iris wasn't there to offer that, but acknowledgement. Of what we'd done. Of what we could do now. I'll agree to the scholarship, Darren said finally, surprising us all. But I want to add something personal. A letter. Explaining why we're doing this. An apology, Sophie clarified. He nodded reluctantly. If that's what you want to call it. It's what it is, Natalie said. Will had been quiet for some time. I've been thinking about this cabin, he said. Ben's family sold it after his father died, but the trust could buy it. Buy the cabin? I asked. Why? As part of the scholarship. A residency. A place for the scholarship recipients to come in the summer. To make art. The idea spread through the room like a current. That would be the third distribution, Natalie said slowly. It would have to be. It's too perfect not to be. And the fourth? Sophie asked. I thought about everything we'd learned. About Iris becoming Erth. About the careful construction of this trust. About her final message to us. The fourth will be for us to let go, I said. To set up the things she wanted to create through this trust and then to leave it alone. To finish it. But finish it right, this time, Sophie said. We voted that night, unanimously, to accept the terms of the second distribution. To create the Erth Voss Scholarship for Young Artists. To write our letter of apology to accompany it. In the morning we stood on the dock, 5 middle-aged people looking out at the vast blue of Lake Michigan. Do you think she forgave us? Sophie asked. I don't think that was the point, I replied. I think she wanted us to face what happened. To remember. To do better. $2 million says she never stopped thinking about us, Darren muttered. No, Natalie corrected him. $2 million says she never stopped hoping we'd become better than who we were that night. As we prepared to leave, I thought about Iris, her quiet presence, her sketchbook full of careful observations, her tears the night we turned on her. I thought about Erth, the woman she became, the careful architecture of her revenge. Not to hurt us, but to change us. To make us see ourselves clearly, perhaps for the first time since that night. The trust would keep us connected for 2 more distributions, 2 more reckonings. We would buy this cabin and complete whatever final task she'd designed for us, then we would be free, not from the memory, but from the willful forgetting we'd all engaged in for 20 years. As I turned back toward the cabin, I could almost see her sitting on the dock, sketchbook in hand, capturing the play of light on water. Preserving a moment, as she'd preserved this one for us, holding it in trust until we were ready to face it. I whispered, well played, Erth. Well played. Please like and subscribe for more great revenge stories. Is there something that happened in your past you'd like a do-over for? If you care to share, no judgment. Please tell us in the comments.